There was this very bizarre admission from the Pentagon this week of an accounting error.
An accounting error at the Pentagon overvalued U.S. aid sent to Ukraine by $3 billion. Reuters cited two defense officials who said weapons taken from the U.S. military stock had been assigned a much higher value than they should have been. The officials also say there are inconsistencies in how the equipment sent to Ukraine has been valued. The error could result in the U.S. sending more weapons to help in the war against Russia.
But wait, there's more.
Following up from some announcements earlier this year, during the department's regular oversight of our execution of Presidential Drawdown Authority for Ukraine, we discovered inconsistencies in equipment valuation for Ukraine. In a significant number of cases, services used replacement costs rather than net book value, thereby overestimating the value of the equipment drawn down from U.S. stocks and provided to Ukraine. Once we discovered this misvaluation, the comptroller reissued guidance on March 31st, clarifying how to value equipment in line with the financial management regulation and DoD policy to ensure we use the most accurate of accounting methods. We have confirmed that for FY23, the final calculation is $3.6 billion, and for FY22, it is $2.6 billion, for a combined total of $6.2 billion.
So that was 2023, and now in 2024 we have another case of history repeating itself. The Pentagon announced another so-called accounting error. This time it's $2 billion, bringing the total of accounting errors involving Ukrainian free money aid to $8.2 billion. Whether or not you believe their accounting error excuse, the real-world effect this has is that now we will send that additional $2 billion in so-called aid to the corrupt country known as Ukraine. I don't have much analysis to do on this other than to say that I don't believe them, and this appears to be another way of getting additional funding to Ukraine when Congress has refused to approve new money going there. Even if you do believe them, then at the very least it's still another example of an overcomplicated government system that leads to issues. If this accounting error sounds familiar outside of Ukrainian aid, it's most likely due to this famous press conference by Donald Rumsfeld on September 10th, 2001.
We are, as they say, tangled in our anchor chain. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Pentagon, the day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change. But the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My 03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
$2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere $300 million.
We know it's gone, but we don't know what they spent it on.
Jim Minery, a former Marine turned whistleblower, is risking his job by speaking out for the first time about the millions he noticed were missing from one defense agency's balance sheets. Minery tried to follow the money trail, even crisscrossing the country looking for records.
The director looked at me and he says, "Why do you care about this stuff?" It took me aback, you know. My supervisor asked me why I care about doing a good job. So.
He was reassigned and says officials then covered up the problem by just writing it off.
They got to cover it up. That's where the corruption comes in. They've got to cover up the fact that they can't do the job.
The Pentagon's Inspector General partially substantiated several of Minery's allegations, but could not prove officials tried to manipulate the financial statements. 20 years ago, Pentagon employee Franklin C. Spinney made headlines exposing what he calls the accounting games. He's still there, and although he does not speak for the Pentagon, he believes the problem has gotten worse.
Those numbers are pie in the sky. The books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan commanded the Navy's Second Fleet the first time Donald Rumsfeld served as Defense Secretary.
With good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayers.
In the 2.5 minutes since this report began, the Pentagon has spent nearly $2 million, and it may never know where 25% of those tax dollars went.
Back to Ukraine. As a reminder, this is just some of what we have sent to Zelensky and co. since the war started.
I am proud that the United States will soon announce more than $2.3 billion in new security assistance for Ukraine.
The House has approved a $40 billion aid package for Ukraine.
The U.S. sending an additional $400 million in military aid to Ukrainian forces.
The White House has announced that it's sending a $2 billion aid package to Ukraine.
The Pentagon said the U.S. will provide Ukraine with $1.2 billion in military aid.
The $3 billion in direct aid to Ukraine includes 50 Bradley fighting vehicles. It's the first time the armored carrier will be sent to Ukraine. The package also includes nearly 300 other armored vehicles, as well as air defense systems and anti-tank rockets.
Blinken is announcing another $1 billion in military, humanitarian, and economic aid.
The U.S. will soon send a new military aid package to Ukraine, worth $325 million.
The House has passed $95 billion in aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan.
I think that all government is a waste of taxpayer money.